FSN Radio. It's all about what's next. Go to financialsurvivalnetwork.com and sign up for your free weekly newsletter. You'll also get 3 free reports. The Financial Survival Network. It's all about what's next.
Welcome. You are listening to the Financial Survival Network. I'm Kerry Lutz. It's July 19th, 2017. Will, you've heard so much about fake news, and it certainly is an important issue. But perhaps an even more important issue that doesn't get talked about much is fake science. And you've seen it over and over again. These studies come out, they're shocking in their results, and then another day, and they're refuted, they're discredited. Well, if you're worried about fake science, you're concerned about it, new book that's out, Fake Science, Exposing the Left's Skewed Statistics, Fuzzy Facts, and Dodgy Data. And we're really fortunate to have the author of that book on with us right now. His name is Austin Ruse. Austin, you run the Center for Family and Human Rights, and we're thrilled to have you on the show.
Delighted to be with you.
So fake science, what exactly is fake science? Give us a definition.
Well, fake science is more dangerous than fake news because fake news can be ephemeral. You know, it can be here today, gone tomorrow. It can be knocked down by a new narrative. It can be exposed fairly easily. Fake science is something that really burrows into the mind and is sometimes very hard to get out. It is a specialty of the left. In their promotion of an ideological agenda, they will often use fake studies, fake science, and by that I mean scientific studies which are not actually conclusive. I'll give you an example. We are told endlessly in the LGBT debate, for instance, that it is inborn, that there's a gay gene. As a matter of fact, the guy who supposedly found the gay gene says he didn't find the gay gene, and his study has never been replicated. Also, it's in our minds that 10% of the population is gay. This is a phony number that was made up by a gay activist when he was going to the Carter White House. It's based loosely on claims made by Alfred Kinsey, though he never said that it was 10%. The real number is 1.6%. The most robust study is from the Center for Disease Control from a couple of years ago. 1.6% of the adult population is about 4 million. So what we do in the book is we look at 11 different issue areas. We show what the left says the science says, and then we show what the science really says. And so it's not just the social issues, but it includes, abortion and marriage and divorce and the sexual revolution, but also fracking and genetically modified foods and global warming and other things like that.
Really? And what do you think the most dangerous fake science out there is right now, Austin?
Well, I think that each of these issue areas has profoundly dangerous fake science. In the Supreme Court decision on same-sex marriage, they actually cited fake science that LGBT is inborn and unchangeable. So, that's profoundly dangerous and it had profound implications in public policy. The notion that the global warming, for instance, is a real thing. The globe has warmed slightly since the end of the Little Ice Age in 1870, but there are great big whopping lies that they tell that are not proven. For instance, that man has caused it, and second, that it's cataclysmic. That Europe is going to be underwater, Manhattan is going to be underwater, all the polar bears are going to be gone. These types of claims are fake science. When you look at fracking, for instance, which is a modern day miracle for the United States, we live on an ocean of natural gas, and they found a way to get it out. But the opponents say that it causes cancer, environmental damage, causes earthquakes. All this is fake science. So no matter what we're talking about in public policy these days, you will find studies that are touted. And more often than not, they're fake studies. They really don't tell us the truth about these public policy issues.
And that is very disconcerting because you just can't believe anything you read. Obviously.
Well, no, you can't. And the typical person is really unarmed for that. Mm-hmm. And that's why I wrote the book, is to give an everyday person, whose son is home from college for the summer and is citing all sorts of studies for this, that, and the other left-wing idea. This book will give the typical everyday person person a handy way to look at what the science really says across these important issues.
Hey, so here's a question. You're reading, you're thinking, is this real or is it fake? How do you know? What sets off the alarm bells for you? Because you trained yourself to recognize these stories, right?
Well, I'm just automatically skeptical of almost anything that the left says. You know, years ago, we were deeply involved in a debate about embryonic stem cell research. I wrote about this in the book, and we were told by the left that it was going to give us treatments and cures, and it's going to help people to walk and all sorts of things. And they said that there was a scientific basis for all of this. But this was coming from the left. And what they said to those who objected on a moral basis to experimenting on a human embryo, a living human embryo, is that we were anti-science. And that's what you hear on a regular basis. So I am automatically skeptical about what people say about scientific claims backing up certain left-wing public policy proposals. And I think that people ought to be skeptical all the time these days because everything has been turned into an ideological debate. So I'm just skeptical from the get-go.
So healthy skepticism upon meeting any claim in the media or any meme for that matter, right?
That's right. Yeah, a healthy skepticism, and then just go check the facts. The internet is ready, willing, and able to help us track down what authentic science really says. And now there's this book, Fake Science, to help people think through these 11 different issue areas.
Right. So, but it's not just limited to these areas. We hear it with everything, right? What about the U.S. healthcare system that we're the worst of the major developed countries in the world? I saw that study recently. True or false?
Well, I did not include that in the book. I'm not an expert on it, but that's something I would be also very skeptical about. These studies begin with a set of criteria that an ideologically driven person will create. And how you define what you're studying frequently has a direct impact upon what the study will eventually say. So, I will be very skeptical of that kind of claim. I'm skeptical of all these claims of the left when they cite science, when they cite social science, because there's so much fraud. And that's one of the big problems in science today is fraud in the peer review process, which is a process that papers go through before they're published in scientific journals or grant proposals go through before they're given grants. But now we're finding out that much of the peer review process is subject to fraud. There's a new website called Retraction Watch, which follows regular withdrawal of peer-reviewed studies from peer-reviewed journals because of fraud. So the most shocking thing I discovered in my research is that science itself has a very serious credibility problem these days.
Yeah, which is really disconcerting. I mean, is there such a thing here, Austin? We hear it often with certain claims called settled science. Do you believe in settled science?
Well, we believe in gravity. There's some, things that we all agree on. But generally, when you hear the term settled science, you ought to head for the hills. Because generally speaking, science is not settled in that it cannot be tested and probed and deeper understandings are developed. But the way it's used these days, settled science, is really the left saying, sit down and shut up. The science is settled on global warming, sit down and shut up. Science is settled on LGBT issues, sit down and shut up. So that's what that really means in these days.
Right. Okay, so you shouldn't be misled. Settled science is really it's really just your alarm bell should be going off when you hear it then, huh?
Oh, absolutely. It is literally them saying, go away. We don't want to hear from you. There's I have one chapter called Back Off Now, Scientist, which you may remember from Bill Murray's movie Ghostbusters. Yeah. They speak from a position of quote unquote authority, and therefore, they're better than we are, they're smarter than we are, and they have all the answers, and therefore we cannot question them. They've almost become a little like a priesthood. Where there's even excommunication if you stray from the orthodox scientific faith. But yeah, the guys in the white coats want us to take everything that they say as gospel truth.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Couldn't agree with you more. It's disconcerting. But for so many years, Austin, most of you out there were never even aware of it, had no clue that it was happening. So what's happened recently to change all that?
Give me that question again.
I said, for so many years, there was no knowledge of this fake science. And yet now we get it. It's endemic. And what's changed to make that awareness?
What's changed is our political debates have become so ideological. First of all. Second of all, that we live in an age of science, and any public policy proposal has to come with a study. There's that. Science is the lingua franca of our age. And so you put those two things together and you run into ideological fake science. You have the additional problem that, we are minting 54,000 PhDs every year in the United States, and all of these people have to, publish and get grants. And sometimes they cut corners, and often they come into science for ideological reasons. When scientists become rock stars like Carl Sagan or Bill Nye, it attracts the wrong kind of person who wants to use science as an avenue, to be a rock star, to be admired. So there are a whole lot of things that go into why fake science is so rampant now.
Okay. And that's such a great point. Years ago, we had a thing called knowledge for knowledge's sake, learning to advance humanity, learning to become a more worldly, a better person. And now it seems like the incentives are very skewed, and it's almost like they're athletes now, or rock stars, if you will.
Yeah.
So society's rewarding bad behavior yet again.
Yeah. You're right about what you just said.
Yeah. So how do we get back to the basics, if you will? How do we get back to a time where solid science, maybe just like law perhaps once was, like so many areas, were a search for truth, and let the chips fall where they may? If there's a medieval warming period and the climate got a lot warmer before there was industrialization, the facts speak for themselves. So there must be a way back out of what we're in now. Well,
some in the scientific community, first we have to understand that there are thousands of scientists who are very honorable people doing very important work. There's no question about that. The problem is with public policy people who are seeking out studies that back up their proposals, and these are ideological people. Scientists really have begun to police their frontiers. The Springer publishing people last year or 2 years ago withdrew 100 peer-reviewed papers when they discovered fraud in the peer review process. There's this new website that I referenced, Retraction Watch. The Amgen people in California took it upon themselves to try to replicate 57 landmark studies in biomedical research and showed that they could not be replicated, which is a monstrous problem. So good people in science are doing good work to police their own frontiers. But what we need to do as citizens is just keep our antenna up and be able to defend the positions that we know are right and true.
Yeah, and maybe it's gotten so corrupt, Austin, because the government finances so much of it. And, that's a big problem.
Well, there are also left-wing foundations, funding a lot of this. I mean, quite frankly, some of the great scientific advances came from funding from the federal government through the Department of Defense. And all of that most of that has been very good research. For instance, 11 of 13 technologies that make your smartphone a smartphone were discovered through funding from the Department of Defense. That's good
Really?
stuff. Where you run into trouble is when the Department of Health and Human Services, run by left-wingers, is funding studies to confirm their left-wing theory about this, that, or the other. That's where government funding is a problem. And when scientists are left to stare at their own navel rather than to go out and solve problems, that is also a problem. And one of the great things that I discovered in research is that when the Department of Defense funds research, they really do have a goal. We need you to find a better radar system, go do it. And so they do along the way make all these wonderful discoveries. So all government funding is not the same.
Yeah. That's for sure. And there is good, but it seems when politics gets into the funding, then we've really got issues. Hey, Austin, it's been really fascinating listening to this because, you hear studies, conflicting studies all the time, scientific studies. Yeah. This is bad for you. This isn't bad for you. And now we're kind of getting to the reason why. So I'm sure a lot of you out there are going to want to get the book. I think it's really must reading if you value science and the scientific method. And the name of the book, again, is Fake Science, Exposing the Left's Skewed Statistics, Fuzzy Facts, and Dodgy Data. Regnery is the publisher. Of course, you can get it on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and wherever fine books used to be sold. I'm not sure where they sell books nowadays, but you might have a bookstore near you. Hey, if you got any questions for myself or Austin, email us, kl@kerrylutz.com. That's kl@kerrylutz.com. And the Facebook page is Financial Survival Network. The Twitter feed's @KerryLutz. Austin, thank you so much for coming on the show, and we wish you the best of luck on your book.
Thanks very much. Thanks for having me.
FSN Radio. It's all about what's next. Go to financialsurvivalnetwork.com and sign up for your free weekly newsletter. You'll also get 3 free reports. The Financial Survival Network. It's all about what's next.